What's up everybody, my name's Tyler Potts, and in today's video we're going to be going back to Vue 3, but in this time we'll be creating this income tracker here you can see on screen. So what I'm going to do here is type, for example, web build. So let's say you've just done a web build, you've charged them about 4.5 grand, 450 grand, that'd be nice. And let's say the money came in on the 8th. You submit and bam, there you go, you've got this little web build, it tells you your price and that, and you've got your total adding up here. Then let's create another one, let's say a web design, right? And let's say you only charge 400 for this. And this one came in on the 9th. I know it's weird, design should probably come before build, but yeah, don't worry, we do things backwards around here. Click submit, and as you can see, because it came in closer to time, it shows your latest ones nearer to the top and your older ones further down the bottom, so it's actually ordered it correctly. And you can see the total is adding up. So let's do one more, and let's say it came in like a month ago. So let's say a newsletter build. And we charge about four grand for this. And let's say it came in on the 1st. So we submit. As you can see, it goes down to the bottom. So it's ordering by date. It's obviously got the cost, and we have to have the price. We can also remove different ones as well if we want to remove them, and the total in that will obviously be reactive and change as you do that. So guys, that's what we're building today. I hope you're excited. We're going to be using Composition API. I'm really enjoying it right now, and I hope you are too. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay everyone, so what we're going to do here is we're going to type in Vue create, and then we're going to give it our project name. So we're just going to put Vue income, that will do. So what's happening is we're using the Vue CLI. If you don't have that installed, go check out my previous video where we look at the basics of the Vue 3 and how you actually install the Vue 3 CLI, or Vue CLI 4.5 is the current one I'm using, I believe. So now once you've done that, let's hit enter, and this should start asking us a few questions about what we want. We're going to be using Vue 3 Preview because we want to obviously use Vue 3's Composition API. So let's hit enter, and now that's going to create us our project. So once that's done, we'll be back. Okay, so now that has built, we're going to do cd Vue income. We're going to hit cd, and then I'm going to run npm run surf. But before I do that, I'm going to do code dot to open it up in Visual Studio Code, as you can see here. We're going to put this into a little doc there, just so it's all ready to go. And then we're just going to run npm run surf to start the development server in vue.js. So as you can see, it's going to start a development server, and that server will be on localhost port 8080, as you can see here. Perfect. So if now we go over here and we refresh, you can see we get the default Vue boilerplate. So back in our Vue IDE, back in VS Code, that's what I'm trying to say. You can see we have our assets folder, components, and app, and then the main. The only folders we're going to be touching is the components folder and the app file as well. So we're going to delete the components. We're going to create new components, but we don't have any right now. We need to start off in Vue. So the first thing we're going to do is remove both these tags. I'm just going to put hello world. I'll just wrap that in a H1. Thank you very much. And we'll remove the hello world component, and we're going to remove all of this as well, and all these styling. So there you go. So let's go back. As you can see, it looks like this. Now let's actually quickly do a couple of styles. So I'm just going to go bam. I'm just going to say margin 0. Actually, no, I'm going to copy and paste this just because, you know, no one really cares about styling it. It's really basic styling. So here you go. Very basic styling, and it's in there. So that's now made it look a bit cleaner. So if we now go scroll back up to the top here, we're actually going to create a new component called header, which is going to have all the header parts. So let's actually create that new component. So over in the components on the left side here, I'm going to create a new file. I'm going to say header.vue, create it, and then I'm going to run Vue. Now, as you can see, I created this whole template by just typing in Vue and then hitting tab. So if you guys want to do that, if you have VS Code installed, you can go over to the left, and you can install something called VETUR, Future. And this is by Pinewoo, and it gives you all the toolings you need, even the Vue highlighting and stuff you need to make your to build to have this. So in our header component, we just need a couple of things. So the first thing, we need a header in our template, and then we need a h1 which says income tracker. We then also need a div called total, or with a class of total income. Now this is going to actually have our total income, but for now we're just going to pass through a 0. We're then going to have styling. We're going to scope this to this styling. So in vue.js, you can actually scope the style tag, which means all the styles you put in here will only apply to what's ever inside your template. Pretty awesome if I do say so myself. So let's quickly paste in the styling for this. So as you can see here, I've just pasted it in. It's a bit messed up. Let's tab that out. Oh no, let's not tab that out. Let's tab that back. You go back. Save. There we go. So that's now in there and it's looking good. So let's head back to app and let's actually get that component rendering, because right now it's not rendering. It's still saying hello world. So what we're going to do is say import header from, and then we're going to say dots. Excuse me, no. VS Code getting in my way, and then we're going to get it from the components and the header. So all we're doing here is importing the header. We're then going to say setup. So now this is a part of the Vue 3, and we, instead of creating like we're going to say props and stuff like that, we can actually create this setup. And in here we're just going to say header, or return header, and this will return that component so we can use it inside of our template. So that's that. Now if we go back, you can see the income tracker has now appeared on screen, which is perfect. So we're going to need a few things in app. So we're going to be importing a few things from the composition API. So if we go import, and then we're going to import reactive and computed. Now let me say from Vue. So in our setup, we're just going to create a new state. So I'm going to say const state, and this is where we're going to keep all our important values, or anything we want to be reactive. So we're going to say income. So we're going to have an array of income. Now this is going to be obviously every single time we input in here and we display a new income on a different day, it's going to be stored inside of here, which is then going to total up to our total income. So we actually need one called total income. But this is actually going to take what's in income and total it. So how we're going to do that is we're going to call computed, and that's why we imported it from Vue.js. And we're going to put an arrow function inside of here. And then all we're going to do is say let temp equals 0. Sorry, I always put a semicolon at the end. Don't put a semicolon at the end. We're going to say if state.income.length is greater than 0. So do we have something in our array? We're then going to say for let I equal to. So we're going to do a basic for loop here. And I'm just going to say I is less than state.income.length. We're going to say I++. So all we're doing here is saying check if there's any income. If there's not, then don't do anything. And then if there is income, we're going to loop through every single income we have in there, and we're going to go temp is plus equal to. So we're going to add on top of length state.income I. So we're getting the current loop iteration, and we're just going to get the value, and that's going to add it to the top. And then after this, we're just going to return temp. So let's split this out so you can read it a bit better. So all we've said here is we're getting the total income. We're going to compute it from the income. So we're just going to say temp is equal to 0, which temp is going to be our total income. We're going to say state.income.length. So we're making sure we have some items in our array. And then we're just going to loop through it. So right now, if we go back, we don't actually get anything. Now we're actually going to pass total income down here, or we're actually going to pass state down here. So we're going to return our state, and we're going to be able to use it up here now. So we're going to create something called total income, and we're going to set this equal to state.total income. So now what we're doing is we're passing a prop from our app component into our header component. So what we can do here is create a thing called props, and inside here we can say total income, and it's a type of number, which we're getting back. So if we go in here, we can actually do some template strings and say total income. Hit save. If we go back and we refresh, you can see it's now still saying 0. because we have nothing in our income. So it's actually just totaling nothing. So let's add one and give it a value of 400 and hit save. If we go back, you can see it says 400, which is awesome. But now let's create a second one because it's actually not actually totaling anything, is it? It's just adding 400. So let's say 500. Oh, value is equal to another 500. So if we go back, you can see we get 900. So it's adding it up. So it's computing whatever values we have in objects inside of income, and it's totaling it up into our total income, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want. So let's leave it at 0 because we're going to add to this via a form. And that is the next component we're going to create. So let's go to components, create new file, and create form.vue. Once again, we're going to write vue. And in here, we're going to set up a few things. God, that's going to get weird. So we're just going to say form. We're not going to have an action on this. We will have a submit function, but not right now. Let's create an input with the type of text. Type of text. We don't need a name or an ID. We just need a placeholder that says income, or we'll just say description. Perfect. We then need another input, which is going to be the type of number. Now, the type of number, obviously, is going to be our value, our value, which is the income value. So we're just going to say, what is it? We'll just say value. I don't know a proper name for that, so it's just value. We'll just say input date, which is going to have a placeholder again. Also, I have noticed I've named the placeholder at the birth wrong. We're just going to say date. And I'm just going to say placeholder. There you go. So that should fix that. And finally, we just need an input of type submit, which has a value of submit. Oh, not submit. Submit. Come on, Tyler. Come on. Get with it, bud. There we go. So we got that. Let's actually style this up now because we ain't got it. So I'm just going to copy the styling and paste it inside of here. We're going to scope this again. So it's scoped to our file, and we're just going to import it. So you can get all these styles if you want the same styles from the GitHub repository, which will be linked in the description, by the way. I'm just going to quickly scroll through it now so you can quickly see what it is. So there you go. So if you want to pause and just copy it out, you can, but you can also copy it straight from the GitHub repo, which is down below. So let's go in here, let's refresh, and nothing happens. The reason for that is because we need to import it like we imported header in here. So we're going to say import form, not from, form from. There we go. No, capital F, please. And then we're going to say ./component/form. And then we need to return our form inside our return in the setup methods because we need to be able to access it to in here. So say form, save, and if we go back, you can see we now get it here, which is perfect. We can type in it, we can add numbers to it, we can select a date. By the way, this date thing here is Chrome's default date. When it comes to Firefox or Safari, this will just be a very basic text input area where you have to enter your own date in this format. You can do something else if you want. You can add a proper date clicker or whatever, but for this tutorial, I'm just going to use Chrome's built-in one. Anyway, let's crack on. So we've got this, but nothing actually happens. So when we click submit, it just refreshes the page, which isn't useful. So let's go back. So let's go back into our form. And I'm also going to zoom this in. I'm sorry if this was too far out, and we're going to close that for now. So we've got this. We now need to add in we need to add in a prop. We need to get props from above, and it's going to be the state, which is going to be an object. So that's a prop we're going to pass through. But we also need to get setup, and setup is going to have props, and it's also going to have emit. Now, what's happening here is what we can do in setup is we can get the props which are passed down from the parent, and we can also get this emit function. Now, if you know Vue 2, emit allows you to pass stuff or call events back up to the parent value, and you'll see what happens in a second. So we need to import some more above here. We need to import reactive from Vue like we did in the parent. You have to call it if you want to use these, you have to call it per per component. Jesus, sorry, I couldn't think of what it was there. So in here, we're just going to say const, and we're going to say form data, and we're going to set this equal to be reactive And in here, we're going to call a description, which is going to be null. We're going to have a value, which is going to be null to start with, and also a date, which is also null. Now, this obviously isn't the best. I'm actually going to get rid of emit because we're going to get some errors in a minute. And I'm also going to get rid of props just for the second. So just because it will throw errors if not. So what we're doing here is we're going to go down here and we're going to just create a function called form handler. And now when we submit our form up here, we're going to call this function. And all we're going to do is console.log form data. Now let's create a return in here, a return method, so we can return what we want to use. We need form handler and we need form data. So let's go up here. We now need to create a submit event. So to do that, we say @ or you could say fee on to call an event. But for now, I'm just going to say @ submit. And you normally, obviously, when you're getting a function, you say e, and then when you're getting a form, you say e.prevent default. We're not going to do that here because Vue has a built-in method which you .prevent, and that will prevent the page from refreshing or the default action. And then we're going to call form handler, which is going to call this function down here, which is obviously going to call form data. Now, with this, we actually need to go down here and we need to bind these. We need to do some two-way data binding. It's actually one way, but it's masked as two-way. And we'll just say fee model. Now, this is Vue's way of binding data to an input field. And also, we don't need it for the bottom one. I'm sorry. And for the first one, we need form data dot description. I'm just going to copy this and paste it. So the second one will be form data dot value, and the final one will be form data dot date, and hit save. So as you can see down here, we've got our values here. So description is this first one. Oh, that was value. Description is the first one. Value is the second one, and date is the third one, which is the date. So they all match up. And then when we console log this, so once we submit our form, we should see in our console, can't property of undefined, where have I messed up somewhere? Capital F there, lowercase f, it was a capitalization error. Refresh, and there we go. Obviously, this looks a bit funky because, there you go. So now let's put in here test 01, a value of, let's say, 400, and let's add a date in here of, let's say, the 7th. So if we submit, you can see all this data goes under target in 2020 10/07, description test 01, and value 400. There you go. So we get all that data back. So let's go back into our file here. So now in the form handler, we're actually going to need to now pass through props and then emit. So we need this emit value inside of here, and we're going to call a function. And you have to use kebab case, but we're going to say add income. And now this is going to be the event name we need to catch in our parent. So if this is a bit confusing, don't worry, you'll get it. It's a bit confusing to start with, but you'll understand it a bit later on. So we're going to pass through description, which is going to be form data.description. We're then going to get a value, which is form data.value. And finally, we're going to get the date, which is form data.date, which is perfect. And then we're going to say form data.description is equal to null again. And then we're going to copy this 2 times, and we're just going to say value and date. Now, the reason we're doing this is because after you submit a form, if you don't reset these values, it will still hold. So in here, it would still say test 01 after we submit. But now if we submit, you can see it disappears. And that's what this does. And then it calls this event or sends this event upwards to the state. So let's go back to our app.vue. And in here, we need to actually do a couple of things. So up in our form here, we need to actually catch the event we submit. So we're going to say add-income is equal to add income, as you can see there. So what we're doing here is we're saying at, or we could say fee-on add income. We're just going to use at. And it's going to get this, and all we're saying is add income. Now we need to create this function because this is actually going to error because we don't have an add income function. So back in our setup, underneath the state, we're going to create a function called add income. We're going to take through the data, and so the data is what we pass through. So this second parameter here, is the values we're passing up here. So when we call this, it's going to add these as parameters, which we're going to take back as data. And then we're just going to console.log data. Actually, you know what? Let's just go straight for it. So we're going to say state.income is equal to, and then we're going to say state.income, and then we're going to do we're going to do an array, state.income, and then we're going to pass through a new object, and a new object is going to be data, essentially, but we're going to say data. Well, we can just pass through the data, but we also need an ID. So we're going to say ID is equal to date.now. Now, normally you'd get this from a database, and this would be more secure, but for now, we're just going to use that as a unique identifier. We're going to pass a description, which is going to be data.description. We're going to pass the value, which will be data.value. And finally, we're going to pass the date, which will be data.date. We actually need to do something with that first, though. So we actually need to turn this into a better date. So we're going to say let d is equal to data.date.split the string by the hyphen. And then we're going to say let new d equal, so new date equal to a new date. And we'll pass D0, D1, and D2. So I'm calling here, so we're getting this new D value. We're getting a new date or new string from splitting up, or an array, sorry, from splitting up the date string. And then we're passing these through as different parameters in date, which obviously, as you can see, it takes the year, month, and the date, which is the day. And then that's going to give us a new date. And what we can say down here, instead of data.date, we're going to say new d dot time. Get time, sorry. And save. And now that is going to pass through our new thing. So we can go down here and say console.log state.income. So let's go here. So that should be everything sorted for that. We need to pass through add income in our return method in the setup. But that should now be working. So let's open up our console. Let's just zoom out here a little. And now in here, we're just going to say, let's refresh the whole page. We're going to say test01, value 400. And in here, we're going to say it came in on the 8th. Submit, you can see we get 0400. Now that's an issue. We'll fix that in a second. But here you can see we get the array pass back, which is the date, the ID, which is the date, or the literal time right now. We get the date, which was the 8th. We get it in a timestamp value, so we can convert this to whatever we want later on, and we get the value, which is perfect. So let's go back and let's quickly fix that issue we're getting. So reason we're getting 04 is because it thinks these are strings, and it's adding two strings together, which makes 0400. This is one of the issues with JavaScript. But what we're going to do is we're going to go pass int, and we're going to pass the value as a number and not, or an integer and not a string. And that should now fix that issue. So if we refresh and we say test01, value 400 and date, whatever date, you can see it actually comes at 400. So let's add something else, test02, 500, so this should equal out to 900. And there you go, we get 900. Perfect. So now if we have a look at this, you can see we have two objects in there now. The original, which is coming out weird, and then that one, which is perfect. So you can see both of the submissions are in there. So let's go back. So we've done the add income. We've got income adding. We've got income. We're able to add income now, basically. So what we need to do now is actually display it on screen. So to do that, we need to create a new component. And this new component is called income list.view. And we're just going to type view. Let's just close this. And what we're going to do in here is going to be very basic in here. We're just going to say dot income list. And then we're going to pass through an item in here. We're going to pass through another component. So inside of the export, we're going to have, inside of style, let's scope this. And it's going to be a very basic styling. It's just going to be income list. There you go. So that's the income list in there. now we've got that, we need to go in and create a fourth component called the income item. So let's go over here. Let's right click here and say new file, income item.vue. Let's close this and let's type in here vue. So now we've got a template. We need to create a descriptor called income item, a diff, sorry. We then need a remove item, which is going to just have an X in it for now. We're going to have a description, which will just say description for now. We need a price, which will just have a pound sign and 0 for now. And then we'll have a date, which will just be date for now. There we go. So these are all the things we need to pass from the parent down to this. So we need to actually get a prop. So let's just type in the prop here. So say props. And say income of type object. Object. There we go. And in the style, let's quickly add all these styles in. So in scope it and then paste this in. There we go. So we get all this income. So just showing you the CSS. It's very basic. Again, you can get this from the GitHub repository, which is in the description. So there we go. We've got that. So let's go back to income list. Now in income list, we need to import that new item. So we're going to say income item from and then / income item because we're in the same route. So we don't need to do / components. It will just be there. We then need to go down where scope. We actually need to get a prop for this one because we need to know what we're actually getting. And we're going to get the state and object. Oh, object. And then we need to get that income item. Say fee 4 is equal to data in state.sorted income. Or we're just going to say income for now. We won't sort it to start with. We'll sort it afterwards. We need a key, which is going to be the data.id. And then we also need the income, which is obviously just going to be the data. And let's just slash that. So there we go. So we've got this income item. That's perfect. So it's there. It's added in, but it's looping through, but it's not actually doing anything. So we need to actually pass through the state. So let's go back to app. And up here, we're just going to say state is equal to state. Save, go back, refresh, and nothing's happening. So let's just do test 01, a value of, let's say, 400, and let's pass through saying 8. Submit. We get it here, but nothing actually shows. And that's because we need to import our component here. So we're going to say income list from / component / income list. Save, copy that. And we pass state into our form, but we was actually supposed to pass it into our income list. So if we go back, income list is defined but never used. We actually need to pass it through our return method down here, like we did with everything else. Save, go back, refresh, income, back in here, and again, back in the list, and we need a setup method just like we did before. So setup, and we need to return, and we actually need to return the income item. And that's the issue we're getting on screen. There we go. So now let's do test 01, 400, and let's pass through 15, submit, and there you go. We see this, but this isn't what we want. This isn't correct. So we're actually passing through some data here, and we're passing through the income. So let's go back to our income item, and we're getting the income here. So all we need to do now is swap this out for the correct stuff. So we just need to say income.description. Keep the pound sign there and just say income.value. And the final one, we actually need to format this. So this is actually not going to come through right, but we're just going to say income.date. So let's go back, and as you can see, there we are. Now we need to format this date before we actually display it on screen. So to do that, we need to go back and we need to create a new setup method. We need to pass through props, and inside of here, we're just going to say let date equal a new date, and we're going to say props.income.month, or date, sorry. So we're going to pass through that. We're going to say date, let day equal date.get date. We'll say let month equal date.get month. And we're going to say let year equal date.get year, or get full year. And then we'll say let formatted date equal, and we'll say day plus slash plus month plus slash plus year. And then let's return this. So we'll say return formatted date. So in here, instead of doing income.date, we're going to say formatted date. And now if we go back, you can see we get the correct date. So it's the 15th of the 10th. So let's make sure that's working. So let's say test 02. Let's say this one is 900. And let's say we get this on the 22nd. As you can see, it says test 02, 900, and we're getting on 22nd. But the issue is it's now not sorting. So this is finished from a point of view of we can add income. But we need to be able to sort it. So to do this, we're going to go back. We're going to go up a level. So we're going to go up to app.view. And we're actually going to create a new computed value in here. So we're going to have our total income. But we actually need to get something else, which is going to be called sorted income. So let's call sorted income. Now we're going to use computed again, like we did for the total income. And what we're going to do here is we're going to say this is equal to, and we're going to say let temp, like we did in the last one, a temporary temporary array. We're going to say temp is equal to state.income.sort, and we're going to pass the function of A and B. And what we're going to do in here is just say return return b.date minus a.date, and this will return correctly, and then we just need to return the temp. So let's go back into our income.list, and where we say state.income, we're actually going to say sorted income. So here we've got sorted income. We're actually going to say that in our list. So instead of getting it from our income list, we'll get it from our sorted income. So let's try this out. So we'll say test 01, a value of 500, and let's get it on the 8th. Cool, so we got one on the 8th. Let's say test 02, we'll say 400, but we get this one on the 10th. Submit. You can see that now appears in front, which is perfect. Let's try one more time, and let's say we got this one 2 weeks ago, or however long ago. We'll say this was not yet. That's a good price. And we'll say we got this on the 1st. So submit, and there you go. You can see it said it added it to the bottom. We called it test 02 again, but you can see the price is different. And it's on the 1st attempt. So it adds it now in date order, descending from the latest date to the earliest date. That makes sense, yep. But there you go. So that's how you make an income tracker in Vue.js. Now, if you're a little confused in that, you can always download the GitHub repository. The link is in the description, and you can have to look through the code yourself. I hope you followed along and learned something new. If you did, don't forget to leave a thumbs up, smash that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video, guys. So thank you for watching, and peace out.